Oh, it's so good to be free.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Homestead Challenge. Today is the day. I am making soap, finally. If you've been following along at all, then you know that I've been trying to make soap for a little while now. And it's something that I've been terrified of because you use lye. And if you get lye in your eyeballs, you can go blind. And that's scary. But I've watched lots of safety videos and I'm taking all the precautions. So hopefully today, for the first time ever, we will successfully make soap. Keep on watching. All right, so your first step is actually going to be to measure everything out here. And I think I'm gonna do a little bit of voicing over here because this took me so long to measure everything out, probably like 20, 30 minutes because you have to melt some things. There's a lot of dishes involved. So we're just gonna speed through the boring part. You do have to have a scale for this. This is the first time ever I've used a kitchen scale, which might surprise some of you. I know a lot of people use kitchen scales all the time, and to be more exact, you really should. But I never like to do things exact. That's why soap making is, well, probably not going to be my thing. We will see how this turns out. If you check out the description box down below, there's going to be a recipe for everything. There's very exact measurements on everything. So you're definitely going to want to go ahead and head over to the blog and check all that out in order to follow along with this tutorial. Now this is definitely something that you want to do when your kids are not around. And you might want a better kitchen scale. This one doesn't really go down to the exact measurements, so unfortunately I'm gonna have to guess a little bit. All right, so I transferred my dandelion tea here. It's not very dark because I didn't have it steeping for all that long. You can steep it overnight the night before if you want. Don't steep it for longer. If you saw my last video, I tried that and it smells really bad. But you steep that for a little bit and then it has cooled down, and we want it to cool down because we're going to create even more heat by adding the lye to it. So we're going to do this in the sink because this is going to create a reaction. You never want to add any kind of water to lye. So you might not always be using dandelion tea in your soap. It might just be regular water or a different type of mixture. But you want to add the lye to the water. Otherwise it might create a reaction that will create some kind of like fume dust situation, and that will come up in your face. And we don't want that to happen. Something else, the reason why I'm using plastic here, I normally use all glass in my kitchen, as you can see. I actually bought these special for this, which I don't recommend. If you're going to do that, get them from the thrift store. But lye doesn't react with certain plastics. I'll put in my blog the exact ones, but I know for sure number 5s it doesn't react with. So this is a number 5 plastic, and that's specifically why I got this one, and that way it won't ruin any of my dishes in my kitchen. All right, I have my immersion blender ready. And first we are going to mix all of our oils and everything together, and then we are going to add in our lye mixture. So as I said, lye can ruin things over time. It's probably really not that big of a deal if you're not making soap with it every day or anything like that. But I have heard that vinegar can kind of neutralize lye. So what I'm gonna do after I'm done using this is I'm actually gonna rinse it in vinegar before I wash it. And that should just save me from any harm. All it's gonna do, worst case scenario, is maybe etch things a little bit, like it might etch this glass bowl. I don't think it will though. The harshest process is already over, which was making the lye water. Once we start mixing this all together, it's going to saponify and make our soap. Once it has saponified, the lye is no longer toxic or is going to react with these things and cause any problems. So we are going to start here. I'm not sure if I remember what everything is, but I'm going to try here. Like I said, I'm going to have all of the measurements over on the blog. Here is my tamanu oil. I'm not actually making very much soap here. I have lined a cookie sheet here. I have a silicone mat under it, and also I have 6 silicone molds for 6 little bars of soap. So I think that that should be just about right for what we're making today. And then also, you might notice in my recipe it says shea butter. That is what this recipe calls for. I couldn't get it in time, even though I've been trying to make this for quite some time now, but I'm using cocoa butter instead. When you make soap, it's actually not a great idea to make any substitutes if you don't know what you're doing. Once you start learning about how the process works, you can make substitutes. Cocoa butter, I already had, and it is a very close substitute for shea butter, so we should be okay because they are both butters that harden and they will help make the soap hard. But if this doesn't work out, we can blame me for not using the right stuff. I also have melted coconut oil. You need to make sure that everything is completely melted before you even measure it. This is a lot of dishes. Let's see. This one I believe is the olive oil. Oh, it's a little thin. It might have been the sunflower oil. And I'm really excited to use all of these oils. That's why I chose this recipe. Being pregnant right now, my skin is really weird and it's dry in certain parts. So I chose all of these things that are going to really help nourish my skin. And I wanted to use dandelions because it's just the season. Olive oil, maybe. That might have been jojoba oil. That's the olive oil. All right, so I am just going to, well, I probably should have used a deeper bowl than the shallow one since I am using the immersion blender, so I'm gonna have to lift the bowl sideways. And I actually am supposed to mix this all together until there's no more bubbles. I don't know if that's gonna happen. It's just creating more bubbles. All right, so first lesson learned, use a smaller container so that your immersion blender can be fully submerged. That might have been obvious to some of you, but I obviously don't know what I'm doing. Because it wasn't submerged, it was adding in more air constantly and making more bubbles, but it looks like we're getting less now, so that is good. I don't think we're gonna get no bubbles though. So we're just gonna go with it from here. We might have ugly soap, but it'll be soap, so that's fine. All right. So our next step is going to be to add in our lye water to start the saponification process. I'm just going to add all this in at once quite slowly. Before I start the immersion mixing again. I'm a little bit nervous. I mean, the most dangerous part is already done, but I'm still nervous. I don't want to fling this mixture all over my kitchen or all over me. So I'm going to start the saponification process by mixing the oils in the lye. It's already thickening. All right, so once you hit the point of trace, which apparently happened really fast for me because I'm doing such a small mixture, if you doubled the recipe, then I think it would take a little bit longer. At this point, I'm actually going to add in my honey mixture. And that way it's drizzled throughout. Maybe it's very thick. I might need help from my assistant. The honey in this process partially is still pretty, but it will work. Now this is the part that as a beginner I'm not really 100% sure on, so you're learning with me right here as we always do on the Homestead Challenge. So if you do want more beginner inspiration showing you that if I can do it, you can definitely do it, please hit that little subscribe button to join me on more journeys of learning how to live a homemade from scratch life. All right, it's getting really creamy and smooth. I need to figure out now when I need to pour it in my molds. All right, so I think I saponified it a little bit too much because there should still be drippings coming from your immersion blender. And then if they hang out on the top and don't sink down, that is when it's ready to be poured in the molds. I went a little too far, but I think that we'll be all right. I'm going to get it into my molds. I think the only way to do this might be a spoon. I also don't recommend doing this while your toddler's napping because that was really loud and it probably woke him up. Let's stick this in the sink. I got these cute little 100% handmade soap molds, but you can use any type of silicone mold or soap mold. There are also metal ones. This is definitely not liquidy enough based on what I've seen other people do, but I think it'll be all right. We'll just have to make sure to tap it down really good, really well. Sorry. I'll be super honest with you, this kind of smells like grass because it has dandelions in it. Doesn't smell that great, but that's okay. I think once it hardens, it probably won't smell like anything at all, which is typically actually what I like. I'm not heavy on the scents these days. Especially while pregnant, everything gives me a headache. All right, so as predicted, the immersion blender woke up the baby. We live in a very small house, and I'm pretty sure it has no insulation. He has a sound machine, it just never helps. So I have put this in my molds. Like I said, it was exactly 6 little bars of soap. I can be as loud as I want now. So you're gonna hit this against the counter a couple times to make sure there's no air bubbles. And that's what's gonna help us get a pretty nice and hard piece of soap, hopefully. So I just sprayed it with my alcohol and I have a piece of paper over top. We're gonna let it, they're warm based on the reaction, that's interesting. We are going to let it sit out on our counter for 3 to 4 days and then we can pop them out of the molds at that time. You have already made soap, so you can use it at any time after it hardens, but if you wanna like give it as gifts or just make sure it lasts longer and stays hard, then you're gonna wanna let it cure for about 4 weeks after that time. But I will be back with you in a few days and we will see how it turned out.
Hi everyone, welcome back. It is 4 days later. I'm in a little bit different spot because it's actually thunderstorming. So I have no light in my house right now, but I wanted to show you how the soap turned out. I broke one out of the mold already, but I'm gonna break out the rest on camera. So they're super easy to come out. Well, at least the first one was. And they're not perfect. So I think that this is because I put them in a little bit too hard, like they weren't liquidy enough, so they didn't quite fill the mold as well as I would have liked. That's why the back is kind of ugly, but the front is super cute. It says 100% handmade, and they are crumbling a little bit. But like I said, I think that was because I don't know what the word is called. I mixed it too much, basically, so it got too thick. Normally you want to put it into your mold when it's a little bit thinner, so it can kind of self-level. And as I said before, I do have to let these cure for about 4 weeks before using them. But hey, they hardened and they made soap. They might not be perfect, but I'd say for my first attempt, not bad. Nobody went blind. Nobody got hurt. I'm pretty excited. I will also say that it's not the best scent. I think it could have used a couple drops of essential oils. Now, you normally don't want to add too much more oil or anything else based on your recipe because it is all based on a percentage of oils to lye. But I think I could have just added like 5 to 10 drops of an essential oil and that might have gone a long way here. I think lemon would be nice with these just because they are this happy yellow springy color. They're almost like a yellow-green because my tamanu oil is really green. But anyway, I think they turned out okay. They're not perfect, but nothing we ever do is perfect here. So for our first attempt, I'd give it like a B. Not bad. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you have made soap before and you have any tips for me on how to make them come out of the mold a little bit more cleanly, let me know. Not bad though. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more beginner homestead inspiration, and I will see you next time. Cheers.
Oh, it's so good to be free. Your rules don't apply to me, no. I blow away all the pressure.